Right people, remember to subscribe, that way you'll know when I upload the next video and you'll be supporting my channel. Also follow me on Twitter. Sometimes YouTube doesn't send notification, this way you'll know when I upload the next video. Horizon UX, and this is The Enemy Within, the German Army's Power Play, the Great War Week 17 by the channel The Great War. It's been a while since I read the last Great War series. Obviously, I will finish this, just like I'll finish everyone. There's still Alexander the Great video left, which I'm gonna do tomorrow, I guess. I don't know. There's so much things to react, right? It's getting harder to arrange things. Obviously, I prioritize the type of videos that gets more views. But yeah, I plan to finish all the videos that I started, like also Historia Civilis. I'm gonna continue that too, but in time. So yeah, the commanders of the German army blame each other for the missing victories. Obviously, that would make sense. Erich von Falkenhayn and Paul von Hindenburg both believe that they have the only solution to the problem. That's typical as well. The German Emperor Wilhelm II feels more and more excluded when it comes to military decisions. Why are you not including me? It's like children playing, feeling basically, not including in many things. That's stupid. But yeah. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. Check out the Twitter account I created. There you'll know when I upload the next video. I usually upload 6-7 videos in 24 hours, 6-7 reaction videos, and YouTube only gives 3 notifications, even that. So on Twitter, I will constantly posting every time I upload a video. So there you'll know when I upload the next video and which one you want to watch it, I guess, something like that. So yeah, let's watch it.
3 months ago, the nations of Europe went to war, confident that theirs would be the winning side, and the war would be over in weeks. Now that the reality of a long war has sunk in, we see something new: division, confusion, and hatred in the command structures of the armies themselves, where once they had been basically unified. This division and confusion would lead inevitably to the needless deaths of tens of thousands of men. I'm Indy. Welcome to the Great War. Last week we saw the fighting peter out on the Western Front as the rains and snows of winter came on in force. On the Eastern Front, the Russians had surrounded the Austrians at the fortress of Przemysl, but further north had regrouped at Lodz to meet the advancing German tide. On yet another Russian front in Turkey, the Russian offensive had been crushed by the Ottoman forces, and in the Middle East, the British were marching on Basra. There were some Austrians who were actually on the move though, 500,000 of them, and we'll see what they were up to right now. For the past week, they had been invading Serbia, facing half their number of Serbs, who offered effective resistance but were generally retreating. The Serbs had driven the Austrians out of their land in September, but this time, it wasn't going to be so easy. Serbian morale crumbled as the Austrians managed to bring their heavy artillery through the Serbian mud. Much of the Serbian forces lacked ammunition or cold weather clothing, and deeper the Austrians penetrated their territory. Serbian Field Marshal...
Yeah, so far Austrian army has been, incompetent, but in the end they do have the equipment because they are the Austrian army compared to the Serbian, so that's going to be a problem.
Radomir Putnik, who had actually been caught in Budapest when the war broke out, but was allowed to return to Serbia by Emperor Franz Joseph, had ordered a retreat to the Kolubara River, where defensive preparations had been prepared long in advance. On November 16th, the Austro-Hungarian forces attacked, but the Serbs pushed them back over the next few days. However, from the 19th, the Austrians managed to gain a foothold, seized higher ground to the south, and now forced the Serbs to retreat. Casualties on both sides were high, but they were exacerbated by frostbite and hypothermia. At this point, both armies were woefully unequipped for the onset of winter. Further north on the eastern and northeastern fronts, though, winter was already here, and men were freezing to death every night in the trenches. There was a bit of chaos in the Russian high command as General Rennenkampf and his Siberian army in the north was probing towards East Prussia, but hadn't bothered protecting his flank. And when the Germans began...
I'm not gonna lie, living in this kind of a hellish conditions that already is the war, right? Living in that muddy field, it's already worse. Now you have to fear for your country and basically fighting a battle and after that dying because of cold. I can't even understand the mindset of what people went through around that time. What were people thinking around that time? Because it's just horrible. I mean, it's horrible at a scale that nobody really can process, that nobody can really think about that. Like, that was just fucked up. Somebody just seeing that frostbite is setting in. You can feel it. Infections and things starts up, and over time because of frostbite a person dies. That's just slow and horrible death. And times like this, I mean, that's just...
Began a surprise offensive last week, it had collapsed. General Nikolai Rushki, in charge of the whole northeastern front, had pulled his troops back to Lodz, but he didn't seem to understand the size of the German attack. And on November 18th, the Germans reached and nearly surrounded Lodz, 250,000 strong, against 150,000 fortified Russian defenders.
And these are Germans,
but when a Russian retreat was ordered, it was countermanded by the Grand Duke Nicholas himself, the Tsar's uncle, commander-in-chief of all the Russian forces. Now, German General Ludendorff had attacked in order to preempt the Russian invasion of Germany. And this preemption was successful, as the Russians now had to divert tens of thousands of troops from the invasion forces to save Lodz and Warsaw.
By the way, this is the first war where people throw a number like, 250,000 troops for a battle here and there like it's nothing. This is not common before this, right? These are some massive scale numbers. I mean, yeah, people fought with those kind of numbers, but entire wars, not some battle here and there. This is an ongoing war, and this is one battle where they just brought 250,000 soldiers against the Russian.
They did more than that, though, and in just a few days had almost miraculously assembled around 500,000 men to fight the Germans, and Ludendorff was now overstretched. This was warfare on a gigantic scale, and though the Germans hoped for a victory as great as Tannenberg, during the week of fighting that followed, the German war machine ran out of steam. By the 24th, an entire German army corps was even threatened with destruction, and the...
Oh, wait a minute, that's not... Oh, that's just shells, right? It's just shells and equipment, those are not bodies. Seriously, this channel, I'm surprised how it survived YouTube. With all the videos, I see the age restricted video notice on this. At least that's at least YouTube did something, right? Because I'm surprised how YouTube is letting this channel go. I guess the channel fought back. Like, this is history. I don't care if you're uncomfortable with it. This is history. You can't suppress it or something like that. I don't know.
Threatened with destruction, and the Germans were stopped by the Russians, the weather, and exhaustion. Ludendorff had failed to take Lodz or reach Warsaw, though a Russian invasion of Germany was now plainly not going to happen in the foreseeable future. The Russians had suffered nearly 100,000 casualties, the Germans less than half of that. But once again, the Russian advantage in men had overcome the German advantage in technology.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm scared that YouTube will cancel my channel because of the images like that. So I have to stop it every time image like that comes.
A side result of the Battle of Lodz was that Ludendorff's superior von Hindenburg was promoted to Field Marshal. Now, this sounds great for Hindenburg, but I think we really need to look at what was going on in the German High Command now that it was obvious to all there would be no quick, glorious victory. So here are the machinations in progress. On November 18th, the German Chief of Staff Falkenhayn, the Commander-in-Chief of the German forces, told Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg that the war could not be won because the Allies have too many resources. He presented his plan for closing down the Eastern Front so that they could win in the West against the British, who Falkenhayn believed were Germany's arch-enemy, and who he believed were fighting the war only for mercantile profits. Bethmann Hollweg was shocked, for he could conceive no end to the war that did not cripple Russia, since he believed Russia's interests were directly the opposite of German ones. He was also really worried about Austrian Chief of Staff Konrad von Hötzendorf, who said flat out that without fresh German troops, Austria might collapse, leaving Germany to fight the whole Eastern Front alone. So he travels to see Ludendorff in the east, and Ludendorff thinks that, far from closing down the Eastern Front, it's actually Russia who can be beaten with more troops. It's also no secret that Ludendorff hates Falkenhayn. So Bethmann Hollweg goes back to Berlin and starts...
Seriously, I mean, they're literally one versus all. They are one, let's be honest. Austria just like, Austria's like, daddy, we are in trouble. So Germany is literally one against everyone. And this is the time that decides to not have unity. Come on.
Talking up the idea of firing Falkenhayn as Chief of Staff and replacing him with Ludendorff. Now, at around this time, Kaiser Wilhelm was pissed off that nobody ever consulted him about the war, and even said at one point, quote, "If they are under the impression in Germany that I am leading the army, then they are very, very much mistaken," end quote. But Wilhelm did have one very important power, to appoint or
I don't know why, to me that's very bitchy way of saying. But seriously, why do these people have power complexes when it's about results? I mean, Kaiser being, I'm the Kaiser, goddammit, why not consult me? It's a war going on, man. Come on, generals are doing their job. Chill out, man. You put generals in their position for a reason.
dismiss the chief of staff. But the Kaiser says no to the idea of Ludendorff as chief of staff because he doesn't trust him, and even goes so far as calling him a dubious character. So in response, Admiral Tirpitz and former Chancellor Prince Bülow start talking about maybe having the Kaiser declared insane so that Hindenburg would be the de facto administrator and Ludendorff and he could have their way and get more troops in the east. Really, this is what was going on. 5 months earlier,
when war goes on, everybody loses their mind and loses the perspective. You're talking about Kaiser, for fuck's sake. Just for the sake of that particular war and the outcome of that particular war, that you want it like, the way you want. You are proposing crazy idea that, I guess, shakes the very foundation of your country, undoing the things. The reason why you're even going to the war. You are trying to attack Kaiser, right? Declare him insane. But are you listening to yourself, man? Come on.
the German high command went to war enthusiastically. Now, they were all taking sides against each other, trying to wrap it up. But they weren't unique. We've seen British commanders who wouldn't work with the French ones who wouldn't support the Belgians, and all sorts of chaos and infighting in both the Russian and Austrian commands. It would only get worse as the winter wore on. The winter was indeed wearing on in the Western Front, which at this point was pretty much totally congealed in lines of trenches stretching from Switzerland all the way up to the sea. You know, when you look at that line, it's really easy to see how the geography kind of dictated the war plans throughout the war. The general idea both sides had for any major operation was an artillery bombardment followed up by infantry assaults, and then the cavalry following that up and breaking into open country. However, most of the Western Front was totally unsuitable for such a procedure. South of Verdun, for example, the front was totally inactive for 4 whole years, from September 1914 to September 1918. Too easy to defend, too hard to attack. Further north, it's no coincidence that the trench lines followed the local railways. The Germans had taken and held the Metz-Lille line, while the French held the Nancy-Paris-Arras line. This line was closer to the front, and according to historian John Keegan at least, explains why the French were better able to deliver reserves in the nick of time and win battle after battle. So here we are at the end of the week. The Russians and the Germans fighting a titanic battle, the Austrians pushing the Serbs back at Kolubara, and other Austrians still under siege in Przemyśl. The Western Front was quiet, although quiet meant men being killed every day, as the First Battle of Ypres would not officially end for another couple of days. Imagine being in charge of one of these armies, millions of men under your command. Sure, you went to military school years ago and maybe commanded forces in your nation's imperial possessions, but think what it must have been like to suddenly be confronted with the reality of 20th century war.
And not at this scale, that's for damn sure. I'm not gonna lie, World War I generals and commanders, I don't even know what their psychology was at the time, because let's be honest, people in power like Kaiser, right? Those kind of kings, emperors, people like that were the real assholes who had a dick measuring contest and why this war happened. But the commanders, generals, people like that who are literally commanding an entire armies, I mean, they have real responsibility of men under them, right? Lots of people has real anxiety attacks because of how many people they lose every single time. So, imagine this. Before this, there was no major scale war like this. So whatever people are in charge never saw shit like this. In World War II, people from World War I were there, veterans. So they know what they're in for at least. Even then, Hitler decided to up the ante. But at least they knew what ballpark they are at. In World War I, there was no major World War level of war like that. So everything was new for them. The scale of death they were dealing with was entirely new. This was some ridiculous. The World War I has so many new elements to it, new age to it, that someone even can argue just for the shock and newness factor to it. World War One, I'm not going to say worse than World War Two, that's not possible. But World War One had its own level of horror, let's just say.
Battles that raged non-stop for weeks, torpedoes beneath the sea and machines that could sail the skies, and the horrors of advanced weaponry that could kill hundreds of thousands of the enemy as they killed hundreds of thousands of your men in mere weeks for the gain of a few dozen meters of foreign soil. This was the reality that the high commands of the warring nations now all had to face. And it was a reality that could break the spirit of any man. Some tried to find ways to end the war, some to shift the blame, and some merely sent ever more troops to their needless deaths. But all of them now counted men within their own command structures as their enemies. This was modern war. In the August 21st episode, we spoke...
This is just 4 or 5 months in. This is just 4 or 5 months in. This was a 4-year war. Damn, I mean, seriously, the people say the World War III happens. World War III happens. I don't even know what to say to that. Always there's something, I don't even know what to say to World War III because world will see the horror in the sky. People think that it's just going to be nuclear bombs. But if it's a World War III, nuclear bombs is a deterrent, right? People launch bombs so other people just chill out. Sure, there will be a bomb strikes, nuke strikes certain places. But it will just be at certain places. Then everybody will stop. Because people will see that nobody's stopping. Nobody wants to eradicate an entire country, ever. Right? So some nuclear launches will be there, sure. But after that, people realize that this is not working. So people will just basically, since everybody has a fucking nuke, everybody will have some kind of understanding that let's not use nuke. And the war will go on with the modern equipment and modern thing. Which will be a massive problem. And knowing the scale today and knowing how World War I basically lost how many people and then World War II lost how many people, it's like tenfold or something. World War III will lose 1 billion people easily. Right, people, that was the enemy within the German army's power play, the Great War, week 17 by the channel The Great War. If you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. Check out the reaction. There's a link in the description with all of my videos. I react to way too different genres of video. I'm conflicted. Should I make 2 channels for history and science one and general things like comedy things, meme things as other? I don't know, but we'll see about it next time. But there are way too many different type of videos. So check out the link. Check out the cast for all the playlists. It's easier that way. If you just want to see history reaction from me, there's a history playlist with all of my history videos from different channels. Then there is, Warhammer 40k, Tron, Internet Historian, and different things. And I can't fit all the playlists in the car, so go to my channel, see all the different playlists, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you next time.